I'd like to explain the thought process of why I initiated deadly force here within my own home. As a homeowner, as I came around the corner here, I seen a perpetrator over against the wall. Obviously, he had a firearm in his hand, which I would assume that he could cause serious bodily harm to me. As I did, I came around the corner, did not see this individual because he's back around the corner. I shot him once. Again, I was worried about this being my danger area. As I did, I looked. As this perpetrator came back around, I pulled the gun back away to protect the gun from being taken away and to observe his hands where the threat is at. I seen that he had a firearm. At that point, I fired and engaged him twice and stepped into him to move him out of the way. The reason why I wanted to move him out of the way is because I could see somebody behind him. I did not know his intentions at this time. Obviously, he did not want to fight, so I let him go. I came back to the first perpetrator, which at that point was starting to turn towards me again with the gun. I fired again, and at that point, once he fell down, all I did is maintain control of the situation and tried to remove myself to a safer area.
In 1995, 25% of all violent crime occurred at or near the victim's home.
All right, Dave, we really hit the jackpot with this one tonight. Woo! Get all your stuff together. Let's hurry up. Back on, ground up! Go!
What I'd like to discuss now is scenario number 2. Basically, what we had here is a couple of perpetrators broke into your home. Maybe you have one of your loved ones in here, your sister, your spouse, or somebody of that nature in here, and they might be into a hostage type situation we had here. As I came around the first corner, as I looked and seen, stealthily moved, I seen the first perpetrator had a firearm. At that point, that justified the use of deadly force. I engaged him. As I came around, I seen the second individual. I panned on him quickly because of the proximity to see if he was armed. I could not identify any type of weapon at this point, so I immediately re-engaged the first perpetrator again with 2 shots. At this point, as I was doing this, I noticed that he jerked the firearm out of his pocket and used her as a cover. I know at this point that he really did not want to fight me because psychologically he was trying to hide from me, trying to negotiate with whoever is in my house. At this point, the method I used is to be able to close the gap very quickly and to be able to come down and to be able to, by doing this, placing my hand up here, keeping the gun away from my loved one's head or whoever it might be, to engage him at this point. Once I've done this, I pan the gun around and try and keep control of this at the same time after I've engaged. The purpose behind this technique is it allows me to disappear from his view, and psychologically it will make him hesitate because he does not know what's going on and he does not expect it to happen.
Between 1992 and 1994, U.S. residents experienced 1.3 million robberies per year.
I'd like to briefly discuss scenario number 3 here. As I entered the room here, the first perpetrator seen me as I was coming in because he's facing the direction as I was entering into the room. He immediately sought cover behind the couch so I could no longer identify if he's a threat or not. I immediately panned to my left here, seen the second perpetrator, identified that he did have a weapon in his hand, shot him twice. At that point, I seen that he was effectively engaged. I then immediately cleared back over here to my right to make sure that nobody's here. The problem I had here is because this individual was behind concealment, although I could shoot at him through the couch, I really don't have, deadly force is not justified at that point. I don't know or not if he has a gun, but I don't want him to psychologically become brave, thinking that he has time to decide to fight. That is why you've seen me shoot extra rounds into the floor here. There's no basement or anything, the rounds would be contained. He has no idea. Psychologically, all he is believing that this guy is crazy and wants to shoot me. And that's what I want him to believe, because then he'll be in a fear of the fright mindset, As you see here, he was ready to give up. As I came around, the gun was away from him. He was shouting, "Please don't shoot me." As you notice, I specifically stepped on his arm to be able to keep him from becoming brave at this point. The reason why is I don't want him to try and reach back and grab the gun. If he does that, it's going to force me to shoot him, and I don't want to do that. I want to de-escalate the situation and use the minimum force necessary to resolve it.
627,081 rapes or sexual assaults were committed on U.S. residents aged 25 to 49 between 1992 and 1994.
Hey, what the hell are you guys doing? Back out of the house. Now. Hey, back out now. I have a gun, I will shoot. Do it. Back up now. Put your hands out now! Get out of the house now! Do it! Move! I'd like to briefly discuss the events that happened here in the scenario number 4. A lot of times what will happen is people will follow you into your home, or you may be confronted with people on the street where deadly force is not quite justified, but you have still need to be able to present the gun to protect yourself. I had 3 individuals here in my home that followed me in. For whatever reasons, they were harassing me. I felt threatened enough to be able to pull my gun out, yet I didn't feel there's enough justification to be able to utilize deadly force. Because of that, with proper training and the training methods that we will show you later on throughout this video, we will show you how you can employ the gun to use it as a non-lethal weapon, such as a striking weapon. And with the proper techniques and in the right environment, you can apply that to where it's effective, and you can take the situation and de-escalate it without having to use lethal force at certain times. While talking to these individuals, one of the individuals presenting himself as a leader started approaching me closer. At that point, I knew that if I kept backing up, at some point I would be continually reacting to him. I had to change that to where I was gaining control of the situation. Because of that, he was unarmed. At that point, I commanded him to get his hands up so that it prevented him from taking my gun away from me, because I was going to close the gap on him. Also put him in a reactive state. In other words, he was reacting to my actions. At that point, as I came in, I struck to the center of the chest to be able to move his body away from me. There's certain techniques that you can utilize the firearm and do this very effectively and safe. Obviously, you can strike to the head or throat or whatever, but I just wanted to get rid of him for training with safety and everything. We don't want to hurt our people here. So I struck him to the chest here, knocking him back. At this point, what it did is show them that I was very serious about what I was doing and that I would shoot them if I had to. If I had to take it to the next level, that would be it.
For every convicted sex offender in jail, there are 3 convicted sex offenders on the streets.
I'd like to talk about scenario number 5 here and some of the things that happened here. Initially, as I came into the room, I didn't know how many perpetrators were here. I did notice that the first one I came into contact with, at this point, he had a firearm in his hand. I engaged him because he was a threat to me. I looked at the second perpetrator. I noticed that his hands were full. At this time, he was really not a threat to me because he had no weapons in his hands. I immediately transitioned over to the third perpetrator. My eyes caught his movement of his hands going up. I looked at the hands. There was nothing in the hands. I knew that at this point I had to go back to the first perpetrator because he had a gun. I had to make sure that he was no longer a threat to me. When I came back, I noticed the gun was still in his hand. He was trying to move the gun towards me, or I presumed he was. I re-engaged him at that point. After doing so, I noticed the movement out of the corner of my eye of the second perpetrator. When I looked over, he was dropping the TV or throwing it down, and he started yelling at me, "Please don't shoot, don't shoot." And I seen that he was not willing to fight. He had given up, and that was okay by me. As I came over to the third, though, I noticed that his hands started dropping. Immediately, my attention went to his waist, because the weapon is either going to be in the hands or the place where it's easy access for them, which is usually the waist. She knows he had a gun in his waist. At that point, I attempted to fire. I was going to use deadly force on him, but my gun jammed. Murphy has it. Those things always happen in the worst times for us. At that point, because of the distance and proximity, the only way he would know or recognize I had a jam is if I tried to clear it, because when you're looking from the air end or the muzzle end of the gun, you don't know. So at this point, what I decided to do would be a better tactic is to be able to give him strong verbal communication. He again froze, thinking that he'd been caught. I closed the distance to him, which takes less time to do than clear the gun. Again, using the gun to be able to strike him with the gun here, knocking him back. At this point, we're in a physical confrontation because I cannot clear the gun before he can get his out and shoot me. When he went down and grabbed his throat, I knew that he was in pain. At that point, I just reached down, stripped the gun from him, rolled him over. Once I had him under control, at this point, immediately I have to get my gun back in working order. I clear the jam, whatever it has to take to do that, and I start gaining control of the situation and maintain that.
94% of state's prisoners in 1991 had committed a violent crime or been incarcerated or on probation before. 45% had committed their latest crimes while on probation or parole. When supervised on the streets, they inflicted at least 218,000 violent crimes, including 13,200 murders and 11,600 rapes.